thank you so much for coming on. It's always a treat. You're always one of my favorite people to talk to. So I love that I get to talk to you here.
Yeah.
So how's your day?
So far, so good. It's been like honestly sunny and beautiful outside, and I'm living for it. I needed it this time of year, so.
I completely agree. It was like quite warm too.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, wind was bad, but I'm like, I'll take sunshine over rain any day.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful quote. You can put that on a t-shirt. It'd be great. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
What do you do for a living?
So I am a program coordinator here at Sarnia Lambton Rebound.
Ooh.
Yeah, I run a program called I2I, which
Yes.
stands for Intersectionality to Inclusivity, and it's all focused on building like an understanding and awareness of racial diversity, and really trying to create a sense of connection and belongingness amongst like our youth in the community.
Aw, which is honestly one of my favorite programs that we offer here. Like I love writing grants for it just because like I'm so passionate about the topic as well.
Yeah.
But what inspired you to create the program?
Well, myself, I grew up in a really, really small town where probably about the size of Corunna, and I was one of like, yeah, small.
Yeah.
And I was like one of 5 Black kids in my school growing up, and my brother was one of.
Yeah, your
right?
family was the other one. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and so like I grew up in this community where none of my teachers looked like me. I couldn't go and get my hair done in town. I couldn't go anywhere and have people understand my experience. And being biracial too, like my mom's side of the family didn't quite get it. My dad's side of the family didn't quite get it. And I didn't really have a space where I felt connected. I've always been super outgoing and loud.
Yeah, hey, that's
So,
not
like,
a bad thing.
I find my tribe, like I find the group of people that I connect with, but there's always like that one thing that was like, not quite. And then
super fair.
getting into social services and working in this field, I was like, this has been a passion of mine for so long. Like, let's just jump in and do it. And Rebound gave me the space to do it. So I was working in a different position, and they let me write up the program and kind of run with it. So.
Yeah, which is why this place is amazing for young people, just because it also gives young professionals the opportunity to grow the way
100%.
that they see fit as well.
Yeah.
And so I love the program, like I said, and I love that that was your motivation, because some people go through those tough times and then they don't feel like their story is important, and they don't feel like what they have to say, or they're not the right person to guide young people through that journey.
Yeah.
So for you, like, where does your confidence stem from that you're willing to like put your story on blast almost and make sure other people know that they're not alone?
Yeah, I think honestly it came out of my own like healing work. I've had to do a lot of work on myself, but going from like small town elementary and high school into like Ottawa is where I went to university, and I did my undergrad in psychology and criminology. And in that field of work, you really start to learn about how people's environments impact the way that they connect with the world around them, be it through school setting or like a criminal justice setting, and then obviously through my own experiences. And I think that like 2020 with like the Black Lives Matter movement really picked up. Obviously, it's been something that I've been aware of for my entire life.
Yeah, I was gonna say, some people just woke up and I was like, what? Where have you been?
Yeah.
Like, what?
But I honestly think that when all that took off in 2020 and I saw people actually caring about something that directly doesn't impact them. Like I had white family and white friends and Indigenous family and friends be like, oh my gosh, like let's rally, let's support. And it was like, whoa, okay, this is really amazing to feel connected and feel like people care. And I think I honestly use that as my motivation to be like, this is something I got to run with. Like I have to do something here.
That is actually beautiful, because I feel like now in mainstream media, the way people are talking about that movement and how much traction it got, it's almost in a negative light now, which is unfortunate, because I do think we did take great strides forward. But to hear that that motivated you to create something so unique and so special in this community, like that's amazing.
Yeah,
like
thank you.
again, taking that pain and using it and making sure that it doesn't go to waste.
100%.
I feel like that's been a lot of my journey. A lot of people get uncomfortable with that kind of terminology, but it's true. Like if you go through something, odds are other people are going through it too.
100%.
Did it feel overwhelming though?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh yeah. Like coming into a town like Sarnia, like I've only been here for 4 years and still working on finding like a big BIPOC community, and it's growing and it's changing, but again, you can't always lump everyone together. Like it's not like I can just walk out on the street and see another Black person and be like, oh yeah, you and I are gonna hit it off, we're gonna be the best of friends. No,
absolutely.
because everyone has a personality beyond your own lived experiences. So introducing the program into this city, I was really nervous, and I'm nervous, like talking about it and being out in public with it, but
it's still relatively new.
It is, right? And I just think it's really important to have those conversations. Like when I have schools invite me in or other agencies invite me in to like do presentations, I'm like, I have taken every ounce of like attention I can get right now to like spread this message, to like spread this word. So.
Which is amazing, and your passion speaks for itself, honestly. And like for me, I really wish I could have like went to the program like as a young person, as a youth, just because I entered my university life being very racist and not being a good person most of the time. And it's pretty like uncomfortable to think back to those moments and knowing that growth was needed. But if I had someone like you come into my school much earlier, that could have been almost like an intervention point of saying like, hey, white privilege exists, you have unconscious biases, and you need to work through them, and it's okay. It's not a scary thing. It doesn't make you a demon.
No.
It just makes you a human.
Yeah. 100%. It's funny that you mentioned that actually. Like I mean, we all who still uses Facebook, but like I have
some memes are good, okay?
I will have like Facebook memories pop up of people writing on my Facebook wall from high school being like, yo, N-word, what's up? Like,
oh my God.
Stuff like that still and I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And I have advocated for myself and I have gotten to a point in my life where people know not to use that word with me.
Thankfully, I would hope they don't use it.
But as a teenager growing up, because I was one of few Black kids, I was like, oh, it's like a sense of pride that I can have, or like a connection. Like, sure, I'll let them call me that
it's a
because
term of endearment.
Yeah. Oh, because it sets me apart. It makes me cooler. But then, like, it was also used in really, really derogatory ways, and I was like, ooh. When stuff like that pops up on my Facebook, it's like that's also a motivator for me. Where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to have a teenager show up 20 years down the road and be like, yeah, this was my high school experience. Right?
Yeah, and I also feel like in that moment, if you're talking about a town that's like Corunna, no offense to Corunna, I live there, so I'm throwing shade where I live. There obviously, again, has the same issue that you face. And I feel like there's something about like a survival instinct that takes
100%.
over, that even if you know that person calling me the N-word is wrong, you still suppress it because you're like, I have to assimilate and I have to be normal and I have to just like almost code switch it up. And we've talked about code switching before.
Oh yeah. It's very much like let it roll off, don't make a scene, because who's there behind you? Who's there to back you up? Who's there to understand?
Well, and you don't want to be the hysterical Black person either, because that Angry happened in my high school all the time. Anytime a Black person decided to speak out against anything, they were immediately labeled as that. And I don't know, it still doesn't sit right with me. It's not a good thing. No. And so I feel like there's almost like room for empathy towards your younger self.
Oh, 100%. And that's what I mean when I talk about this program and why it's so important to me. I've done so much of my own healing to get to this point where I'm so open to having those conversations with anybody. Like, if we want to agree, great. If we don't, that's okay too, because that allows room for growth for everybody.
Absolutely.
That's why I named the program what I did, because eye to eye, like, you don't have to see eye to eye with everybody, but you can get to just level of respect and understanding and like hear another person out. That's the whole intention behind the program. I don't want all the kids to come in and be like, yeah, let's all walk out believing and thinking the exact same thing. No. Absolutely not.
That's groupthink mentality.
That's not going to get us anywhere. No. But like, I love the disagreement. Like, I love when I go into classrooms and a kid's like, well, that's not the way I thought about it, or that's not what I think. It's like, let's hear it. Let's talk about it. Let's get engaged. And I love it. I love it.
Well, especially in like the polarizing like political views right now, I feel like that's like a really hot button topic, is intersectionality and inclusivity.
Yeah.
So just to break it down for folks watching, what does inclusivity mean to you?
Inclusivity means to me having a space where you don't need to feel like your voice is a burden on somebody, where you can show up and yes, you might be different, and yes, the space not be set up for you, and it's okay to like ask for what you need or feel safe enough to approach somebody, right? Because we can't check every box. Like, it's just, every single person is such a unique individual that there's no way that we can ensure that every space is safe, but we can try and be inclusive, but we can try and be understanding as to how that person's experience might influence the way that they enter a space.
I love that, because that's how I feel. That's exactly what I think with inclusivity. But I really want to point out a word you said, burden. And I feel like no matter who you are in this world, you feel like a burden a lot of times when you enter a room. Maybe some people don't, and that's totally fine. That means you probably didn't have as much trauma as me, so good job. I'm so happy for you. But I feel like that's really what makes a space like unsafe, is when you feel like that intensity of like, oh my God, I'm a burden because I used my voice. I tried to make change. And to say that inclusivity is like actively working with you to create change is actually, it's quite beautiful how you worded it.
Thank you.
Yeah. But okay, so next word. What does intersectionality mean to you?
So intersectionality is the idea that we have so many different pieces of our identity, and the way that they intersect with each other impact our everyday experiences.
Totally agree.
For example, you're a white woman
Absolutely.
and I am a black woman, and so we can connect on the experience of being a woman, but my experience being black and your experience being white are going to be two very different things. Right? So we can look at race and gender and sexual orientation and body size and ability and mental health status, income, education, the language that we're born in, like all of these things impact the way that we experience the world every day. And that intersectionality is understanding that everybody's experience is different because of those pieces of their identity.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I loved when I first learned about that in my second year university, and it just opened my whole mind because I was the only white girl in the class, and that was my first experience ever. Even my like TA was of color, and so I was like, oh, like, okay, this is different for me because I'm hearing these women talk about the experience going into a job interview and what's that like for them, and doing schooling, what's that like for, and I had no idea any of those experiences because I grew up here, and I was really like heavily bullied, so I always thought I was like on like the underprivileged side, but then once I got to Toronto I was like, oh my God, there's so much privilege that I have at my fingertips and I didn't even realize.
And I think people get sensitive with that word privilege too, right? Because it's like, no, I've worked so hard for everything and I've done this, and like 100% you have. You
celebrate you.
And I can recognize my privilege as a heterosexual woman with formal education, and I'm English speaking, and I was born in Canada. Thanks, Dad, for making sure that happened, right? Because my older siblings are immigrants.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, so I have three of my 6 older siblings are immigrants to Canada and to America. Like, they were born back in Guyana, and so my dad was so focused on like making sure we had the best chance of like thriving that he had to leave 3 of his kids behind in Guyana and come to Canada and try and make a life for himself. So I am so grateful, and I recognize my privilege of being born in this country and of being able to speak English without an accent. That's a privilege in itself.
It's a huge privilege.
Right? I can have the formal education. I own my house. I am able-bodied. I am neurotypical. Like, all of these things are privilege in how I explore the world.
And it's not a bad thing.
No,
it's not. But I did not know that you had that experience of some of your siblings still being in Guyana. So what was that like for you?
So there's such a huge age gap.
Yeah, I knew about the age gap.
So my 3 oldest sisters were all born there, and one of them is no longer with us. My one sister is now in Toronto, and the other one is in Mississippi, and then the rest of my biological siblings were born here in Canada. And so it was really different growing up. Like, whenever we had family get-togethers or like, you know, Dad's big birthday or whatever, we'd have family coming in from the States, and their experience growing up was so different.
I can only imagine.
Than what it was. And because my sisters are so much older than me, they did take on more of a maternal role, so it's not like we like sat and chatted about it. But this past summer we got to take my dad back to Guyana and see the space again where he grew up and where my siblings grew up, and it's really, really eye-opening.
Was that an emotional experience for you?
Yeah, it was.
I can only
Well, we went for Emancipation Day too, which is August 1st. It's the day that slavery ended.
Yeah, you gotta put the quotations.
That's a whole other thing. But it was just so amazing being there in the country and watching an entire country celebrate this national holiday where they were treated like humans and not like animals anymore. And of course, we're still very far from equality.
Absolutely.
But just like being there and celebrating that with everyone was pretty amazing.
It seemed like a magical experience, honestly. And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what that experience is really fully like, especially if you have siblings who were there and then came over and then you were here. Was it like more of like a family kind of holiday, or was it more of like a personal trip for you?
I think it was honestly a mix of the two. So it was myself and a few of my siblings, not all of us got to go. But just taking my dad back and letting him like relive his youth and like be in that space and do things that he never got to do. Like I said, he was so focused on getting his kids into Canada, into America, into a better life for themselves that he never even got to explore his own country.
Wow.
Right? So we got to take him back and we got to explore different things with him and just like let him have that for himself. So it was really, it was a mix of the family and the personal piece, right?
Yeah, but that's such a beautiful experience. Because I had a similar one this past summer when I went back to Holland and I got to take my mom, and that was her first time seeing it. And like my grandpa grew up there. And so I feel like connecting with like your land, there is something to be said about it.
100%.
Absolutely. So from your perspective, what was that like to connect with your land?
It was really eye-opening to, again, just understanding the difference of where I grew up to where my siblings and my dad and my aunts and cousins and everybody else grew up.
Absolutely.
But it was really cool, like just having that pride, like being so proud of the country and like so proud of what it's able to do and how far it's come from when my family left, and like just seeing some of the natural beauty there. It was really grounding for me. Like I came back, I thought it was going to be a heavier trip than what it was, but I came back really like fulfilled, really grounded.
Like light and like amazing. That's so incredible to walk away like from a trip like that with that. So is that your biggest takeaway, or do you have another big takeaway from the trip?
I think that would probably be like the biggest one, just like feeling connected to a space, right? Feeling connected and like a part of something. It was really cool.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Speaking of being a part of something, you got married a year ago.
I did.
How is like the first year of marriage? I don't know the exact date. I kind of
next weekend.
Next weekend, yes.
Oh
okay.
My gosh. Yeah.
Is it weird?
It's been a wild ride. We've been together for so long that honestly the marriage was bound to happen. I'm happy it happened when it did.
Bound to happen,
Yeah, it was just really great. I like honestly wish we could celebrate with all of our friends and family every year.
Yeah, that's fair.
On our wedding day, but yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure.
What's the biggest lesson that you have learned from like your year of marriage?
Biggest lesson would be probably like just don't sweat the small things. Like there are so many things that happen in our day to day where me and my husband can look back at like, look at how far we've come, look at all the time we spend together, look at all the things that we've managed to deal with. This small thing is going to be fine. Like we are going to manage it. We got each other. We're good.
I love that. I think it's so important because some people just get like too, like Nick was on here last week, I guess, and we were talking about how sometimes there's like a tit for tat game that goes on with couples. Yeah. And I find like when people get married, that can like almost intensify sometimes. And it's like it's good to know that you don't sweat the small stuff either, because like that's my number one advice to like anybody in a relationship is just take a bird's eye view. Look at it.
Oh, and like, don't get me wrong. There are definitely the days where I'm like, why are the socks here?
Oh,
like there is a basket. But I'm like, I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide.
I'm like,
we have a home and a dog and like jobs. I can let the socks slide.
Yeah, just like tighten the fist, like put this thing good for 5 seconds.
Some deep breaths, I got this.
Yeah, that's super fair. So is it like weird being in Sarnia? Because you didn't grow up in Sarnia.
No.
But Nick did, or no, because he moved?
Yeah, so we both grew up in the small town out in, it's called Embrun, is where I grew up. He grew up in Russell, which is 10 minutes away from each other.
Yeah, I do know Russell.
But he's like, no, we're from Russell and you're from Embrun, so like that. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, we grew up out there, so both of our families are out there. And yeah, it's been interesting living here, especially through COVID and through, like I said, through all the changes that the past few years have brought. It's brought us a lot closer with our family and friends, actually, just leaning on the people that we know are there for us 100%.
Yeah. So is it weird being kind of removed from the community you grew up in, though, and you're like having to make your own kind of way?
No.
No, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my high school experience wasn't, like I enjoyed my friends, I was extracurriculars, and I did all the things, and you know, part of like the immigrant mentality too is like my dad came over with like, you better get straight A's, you better go to university, you better do this. Yeah. So like that played into a lot of my high school experience, and when I kind of stepped away from that and started creating my own like authentic friendships and not like friendships based on like proximity.
Yeah, which is a real thing.
It was. Yeah. So it's always great going back and seeing everyone, and I do have my people that I stay close with, but it was fun coming here.
Aw,
it's a huge change. Nice. It was a huge change.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know that area. We've talked about it before, but like I love that area, but it is very different.
Very different.
Very, very different.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing about Sarnia?
The beaches.
Oh yeah.
The water.
Beach is the best.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been to the beaches in Ottawa. They're
ass.
Gonna help you grow an 8th toe or something. Like, it's disgusting.
They're not great.
You
no,
will come
really
out with
not.
like an extra limb.
Yeah.
But so I didn't really do the beaches too much. But
No.
here, like, just the water is amazing. My stepmom refuses to go in any water except for the ocean, and she went into Lake Huron.
Oh, there you go.
She was like, I can see the bottom. I'm going in, and I was like, all right, get a girlfriend. So.
Get it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I too love the beaches. Like, so Nick didn't know that beaches were in Sarnia, and he grew up here his whole life.
Oh my god.
And so I took him to his first beach when we started dating.
Wow.
And yeah, he was just like, oh my god, like Sarnia is actually like amazing. And I'm like, yeah, Sarnia's beautiful.
It is.
Sucks in the winter sometimes because there's not as much, but in the summer it's like the place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, compared to Ottawa winters, I will take a Sarnia winter.
That's super fair.
Any time of day.
That is super fair.
Anytime.
Yeah. So what's like the most challenging thing about Sarnia for you?
Definitely being away from family and friends, and again, it's like finding community, right? It's like finding a space where I can. Thank God, United Cuts just opened up. I can go get my hair braided there now.
That's actually amazing because for a long time we didn't have anything in Sarnia.
No, and like they're pretty newly open. I think maybe a year now that they've been open here.
Yeah.
But it's just like finding that connection and that community it still is, like it's a work in progress, but you find your people. And
I love that. I love the finding your people mentality because I grew up in Sarnia, born and raised, and then I left and I found my people, and now I'm in the distance from my people, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But there is something about finding your own way and finding your community.
Yeah.
And I think it does have to go into what you were talking about people being individuals.
Yeah.
I think for too long we looked at people and the human race in a macro approach, where it was just like a top-down method, but now we're in the micro, and I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
When did your mentality shift from like that macro to micro?
I would say when we moved here, and probably like peak COVID, as like weird as it is, because there was no social interaction.
Yeah, that's super
But
fair.
it really was like you got to see how people presented themselves online, and then when you were out in public, if that person's gonna like smile at you, or if they're gonna like walk the other way from you and think that you're gonna be hostile towards them, or whatever it was. I really took it and flipped it, and it was like, I'm just gonna look at every single person for face value, what they present to me, and then create judgments from there. Right?
I love that.
My dad raised me to like treat everybody with respect until they give you a reason not to.
Yep.
So like that's very much my mentality. In my personal life, my professional life's very different.
Yeah, professionally you kind of have to walk a little bit the tightrope kind of method of like just let me get to the other side. Just let me get through it.
I will get through this.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
yeah.
I love that though. I feel like my shift happened in university just because of my education.
Yeah.
And I was in like student politics. And then every time I was like, I tried to put a blanket over people of like, oh, you're all the same. I was like, oh, actually, lol, JK, all of you are very different.
Yeah.
No matter your race, no matter your gender, no matter like your like
Anything.
anything.
Yeah.
Like anything. Everyone's so different. And I think my understanding of that started when people started misunderstanding me. I had a really difficult time in my last year of university because I was president, but there was going to be like this like ostracizing movement of like getting me not to be president. And it was really shocking to me. And it made me realize, oh my God, I have so many like trauma responses that are pushing people away actively. And I think that's when my journey started there. Have you ever been caught in that where like you realize like trauma responses are pushing others away, or have you just always been with it?
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that, actually. So my absolute best friend, I love her to death. She is half Italian and half Punjabi.
Oh, wow.
And before I met her, my husband met her husband, and they hit it off. They were friends. And then my Nick, comes home to me, and he goes, "Oh, you gotta meet Ben's girlfriend. She's so cool. She's mixed." And my immediate response was, "How dare you say that? Like, just because we're mixed, we're gonna get along with each other. Like, what an ignorant comment for you to make." Like, and I got really angry with him.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Whoa, no idea. Sorry, I'll check myself." And we did end up being introduced to each other. And she tells me that Ben comes home and tells her the same thing. "Oh, you'll like Nick's girlfriend, Myckayla. She's super cool. You guys will get along. She's mixed." Sid has the same reaction of, "How dare you say that? How dare you turns out our personalities are actually really, really closely matched, but it was that initial response of, how dare you group me with somebody and think that we're just gonna get along because of the way that we look.
Yeah.
And then.
I think that's pretty fair though, and like even though like it turns out that you guys actually do like hit it off, and you guys are like kindred spirits, I do understand that reaction because it is based in something that like maybe they weren't aware of.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like that was one of many things that we have in common, which is why they thought we were going to be such a great like connection.
Yeah.
But it was just because that was the initial thing that came out. It sends up those walls
That's
at the
super
time.
fair. At the time, yeah. Now you're like, okay, you know when I hear that comment, maybe I'll be pissed depending on who it comes from. But
I'll sit with it for a second. I'll let it marinate. I'll let it sit for a second.
I'll go in the bathroom for like 5 minutes, okay?
Some deep breathing.
No, definitely. But like, in terms of that though, do you find that you get labeled as that and kind of lumped together in groups very often because
100%.
of that label?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 100%. It's, I have people ask me about, oh, you know, my friend is from Jamaica. What do you think of this? I'm like, I'm not from Jamaica. So I can't tell you what their experience is.
Absolutely.
Maybe ask them what their experience is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I honestly think that was one of the things I'm so thankful going to Toronto for, just because there's so different cultural groups, regardless of like race. 100%. Like even white people got so much European stuff, and I was like a part of so many because I'm like a Canadian mutt, which I love. But you know, it is one of those things where like just because someone is black does not mean they're from Africa or the Caribbean or like anywhere. It's you have to actually sit down with somebody and get to know them. Yeah. And then not like judge everything off that one person either. Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
It is. It really is. Which is why like having those conversations, opening it up is like so much what I lean into. Like if I'm gonna know somebody, I'm gonna know them for what they're presenting to me and not what any other assumptions might be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What did you assume about me though? I always like to get a little cheeky stuff. Well, when you first met me, what was your first impression?
I figured that, well, you're very quirky and you're very outgoing. So I was like, okay, either like drama or arts. Absolutely. For sure was like what I immediately assumed. But then it was like, I didn't know really how to approach you. I'm like, oh, is she going to be a little standoffish? I don't know how she's going to receive some of the things I'm going to say. Again, don't want to come across as like angry black woman if I do say something that's like, doesn't always connect for somebody. But I've done so much work in finding my own voice that I did get to, like, I have to get comfortable with somebody before I'm going to cross that line. And like, you and I know each other now.
Yeah, it's so nice now.
I'm curious, what do you think? What was your first impression
My first impression was that, like, you are the sweetest person on earth. That was my first impression of you. It was just like, you have like this aura, and when you walk into a room, it's like, it's almost like yellow, just like spurts everywhere, and everyone's just like in a good, mellow like mood, just very happy and chipper. You have like a really, really awesome aura. So I was not scared to approach you. I think I approached you like right away. I was like, hi, my name is Maddie. But yeah, no, I genuinely like got no bad vibes from you at all. I was like, I love this girl already.
Wow, what a great start to my week.
Yeah, Mondays. But yeah, so we're just wrapping up. So final question. What is some advice you would give to anybody watching right now?
Some advice I would give to anybody watching right now would be to be okay sitting in like discomfort and be okay having tough conversations and opening yourself up to people and experiences because you have no idea what's out there and you got to test those waters, right? Find your crew, find the people that make you feel safe and make you feel connected, but like it's okay to go out there. It's okay to like make yourself feel a bit uncomfortable and figure things out. Right.
Oh, I love that. Being comfortable with discomfort. I love it. We've had a few people say that, and I love that's like a trend of 2023. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Not even, I guess, it's probably your life. It should be like a theme of your life.
Well, I mean, especially just when I think about my program, it's not just for like racially diverse youth. It's for everybody. And then so I just really hope that everybody's okay coming and having those conversations.
I love that. Yeah. So why don't we do a little promotion for Eye to Eye? So where can we find it? How do we contact you?
So we run program here on Thursday, here at Rebound on Thursday nights. We have 3 different age groups. So we do 8 to 12, 13 to 17, 18 to 24. On November 23rd, we will be hosting a multicultural cuisine night. It is going to be called Connecting Cultures Through Cuisine, and we're going to be ordering from 5 different local restaurants. and just inviting all youth in 8 to 24 to come try out some food. There's some registration, and I can send you along that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then starting up in the new year, we'll be running programs again on Thursday nights from 4 p.m. till either 5:30, 6, or 6:30, depending on the age group.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Ah, so I can't wait. All right, well, thank you so much.
Of course, thanks for having me.
No problem. Bye.
Yay. Hey.
Thank you so much. That was so awesome.
Dude.